Welcome to AutoSuccess Cyber Corner, the podcast for auto dealer cybersecurity. I'm Kyle Alexander, and this is episode 6, Understanding Business Email Compromise.
This podcast is brought to you by Proton Dealership IT. When your team is focused on selling and servicing vehicles, who is focused on keeping your systems secure? With a 24/7 365 operation, Proton can monitor, detect, and respond to potential network or cyber issues. Sleep easy knowing your dealership is covered.
Right now, I'm joined by Brad Holton. He is the Vice President and founder of Proton. Brad, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's start with maybe the simplest question on this topic first and maybe help people understand what this is. What is business email compromise?
So it's very simple, but it's very complex. Business email compromise is when a hacker, threat actor, scammer has accessed an employee email account. From there, they then extract data. They start to manipulate the account, and they use that to create some sort of a nefarious action, whether it's attempting to take over a dealership with ransomware, whether it's trying to extract information, or whether it's trying to actually create some financial gain through altering wire transfer instructions, things like that.
It seems simple, but kind of can be expanded on. Definitely a good point to hit on there. So what can hackers exploit or maybe accomplish with access to dealership employee emails?
So, the biggest one we see is what we call kind of a man-in-the-middle attack, where let's say a finance manager, a sales manager is working with a customer in order to finalize a deal, and their email gets compromised. So a scammer gets in the middle. He sees that the employee and the customer are discussing wire transfer information. So he then impersonates the employee and he sends out fake wire instructions. And so instead of wiring it to the dealership bank at Wells Fargo, it gets wired to a completely different account at Chase or Truist or some other bank. So he then basically sends an email back to the dealer employee saying, "Hey, I got the wire instructions. There's some, basically just gets a conversation that stalls it out." So the dealer thinks that the conversation is still going. The customer's already wired the funds, and they wired the funds to the wrong place. We've also seen the inverse of that between dealer-to-dealer trades, where dealers are wiring each other funds, and somebody's gotten in the middle of it and told one dealer to change the account, and he wires the funds to a completely different bank. The other dealer's still waiting for the funds, and by the time they figure out what happened, the funds are already gone. So that's the number one thing we see, and it happens constantly, and the financial losses are pretty significant. The most we've seen in a single incident that we were referred into was about $350,000 that was wired between two dealers that was lost. The other thing that we see a lot with business email compromise is we see hackers extracting additional information, trying to get bank logins, trying to get other email account logins. So they'll impersonate the dealer, send things out to employees to try to get information as well. And the last thing we see is furthering a larger picture, like a ransomware attack, where they will impersonate the dealer employee and send emails either to other dealers or to employees within that dealer that have a malicious attachment on it. People tend to click on something, an invoice from a dealer principal whose email's been compromised, because they know that dealer and think it's legit. So they'll click on that. They're much more likely to click OK and bypass all the security alerts that pop up. And then you wind up getting a ransomware event that takes over the dealership and shuts it down. So there's numerous ways that once an email account is exploited, someone can extract money, can extract information, and can extract a lot of pain in the form of ransomware.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. This is a big deal for dealerships, plenty of ways for it to happen. So how can dealerships maybe safeguard against some of this business email compromise?
So there's a couple different ways to do that. The first one is employee education, right? Teaching people through simulated phishing, through various educational programs. Hey guys, this is what's out there. This is what's happening. This is what it looks like. Don't click on these things. If you don't know exactly who it is and you're not expecting something from an individual, then stop and think about it. Dealer employees are overwhelmed constantly. I mean, they're working nonstop, crazy hours, and they just click on whatever comes in front of them. They just don't even think about it. And so getting people to stop, pause, and analyze, what am I clicking on? Why am I clicking on it? Am I really expecting a invoice or a bank statement or wire instructions from someone that I haven't asked, have you had a conversation with in a month? If not, let's stop and think about that one. So that's the biggest thing, I think, is education. The second piece is putting a platform in place that monitors everything going on within your email platform. So whether you have G Suite or whether you're using Office 365, which is the biggest one, or even if you're still using an older on-premise platform or some of the more lesser basic email platforms, you really need to put something in place that monitors all of the logins, that allows you to block logins from any countries outside of United States or wherever employees might be traveling. But really lock everything down and then have a team that's monitoring that. So if you get a suspicious login from Nigeria or even from Europe, it happens at 2 in the morning. Somebody's looking at that login at 2 in the morning, sees that it probably is not your service advisor, because we know he's in the dealership, he's not in Eastern Europe. So locking that down, taking action. The other thing is looking for activity within the system itself. So if someone's creating a bunch of rules and inboxes that kind of are used to hide other incoming email, that should be suspicious, and somebody should see that, take action. So having that system in place that looks at all that stuff and then having someone react to it is the biggest piece, I think. And then the last piece is having security awareness or endpoint detection software, managed detection software, things like that in your actual environment, so that if someone does click on something and they download something, it becomes a 15-minute event where it's stopped right then. You have a team that's seen it, and they isolate that PC rather than letting it run rampant through the network and leading up to a ransomware or an encryption event.
Awesome. Brad, thank you so much for your time and talking a little bit about some of this business email compromise. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.